show right here on 910 AM, the Super Teacher Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael M. Hotep. It is Sunday, September 20th, 2022, and we are live. Hope everybody is doing well today. It's been a very, very busy weekend, and I did a very important interview with Professor James Small today. We did that this afternoon, so a lot of people saw that interview that we did, and we dealt with the film The Woman King, and I'm going to play an excerpt of that interview on today's show of the African nation. Okay, so on today's show, and here is for some reason the internet's acting up. For some reason, I was broadcasting Facebook through Restream. But on today's show, Davis responding to critics saying that the is not historic, his characters, things like this, as and this one is inspired by true events as opposed to based on a true story. And there's a difference in how you tell those stories that are inspired by true events. But we'll talk about Viola Davis and Julius Tenen, talk box office, defend the film against historical critics. We have to take license. We have, like last Sunday show, I had some other topics to get to, but we didn't have time to get to the other topics because we were dealing with the woman so much. There was so much history to talk about. And then also we had an interview with Rosie of africanmath.com. So one of the stories that I did not get to, actually there's three stories we did not get to. We're going to cover those today. A couple weeks ago, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg was here in Detroit. This week before last, he was here in Detroit. And he was announcing $105 million coming to Detroit to remove I-375 freeway, which runs through what used to be Black Bottom in the Gratiot, Verner area down where, Lafayette Park is, down in that area here in Detroit. We talked about that on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I'm going to share a segment with you from that conversation. Okay, it was myself, it was Dr. Greg Carr. Hold on, let me refresh the screen. I don't know why this is active. Okay, so hopefully the internet, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, let me know how we're coming through. Hopefully we're coming through all right. So we talked about the money coming to the city of Detroit to remove I-375 freeway. And we talked about some of the history of expressways being used to destroy African-American communities. Okay. And this ties into the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts of 1952 and 1956 that drove 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highways across the country, and they ran through 1,600 African-American communities. Okay, so we'll discuss that as well. As very important, and this is all part of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and only 19 Republicans in the U.S. Senate, and only about 14 Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives voted for the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill. All right, so we've got that, and then there was um, there was a story dealing with this is a follow up to the death of Queen Elizabeth II. You have island nations like um, Jamaica, Barbuda, and Antigua, especially Antigua and Barbuda, are saying they may cut ties with the British monarch and King Charles III, and they are renewing calls for reparations. They are renewing calls for reparations for slavery. So we'll deal with that. Democracy Now! Had a good story on that, and also behind Governor Ron DeSantis sending migrants from Florida up north to um, New York and places like this up north. Some history has resurfaced dealing with what are called reverse freedom rides. Reverse freedom rides. And this happened in 1962 when white segregationists, some of them may have been related to Governor Ron DeSantis. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. White segregationists tricked African Americans in the South into being bused to northern cities with the promise of a job and a better way of life. And this was designed to humiliate the civil rights workers. Okay, this was designed to humiliate the civil rights workers. And this is real history. So when we saw the stunt pulled by Ron DeSantis as well as Governor Greg Abbott out of Texas, this history has resurfaced also. So there was a segment on Alex Wagner's show on MSNBC that dealt with this. So we'll talk about this also. All right. Okay. And then we'll give you some information about the online history classes I teach as well. We did a session from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968 today. And that was a really good class. So we have classes coming up this Tuesday and Thursday. We'll give you some information on that. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, I want to jump into this first story here. This deals with Viola Davis and her husband, Julius Tennant. Julius Tennant. So there was an article from Variety.com on this, and also there was one from BuzzFeed.com as well. The article from BuzzFeed is called Viola Davis responded to the Woman King criticism, and said that most of the film story is fictionalized. All right. So as I discussed in the interview I did with Professor James Small today, and I'm gonna let you hear some of that here in a few minutes. There are four main ways to when we deal with historical stories. There are four main ways to tell historical stories or historical screenplays. Okay, you have based on a true story, you have based on true events, you have inspired by a true story and inspired by true events. There's a good article from ScreenRant.org, I think it is. Let me pull this up here. There's a good article from Screencraft.org called Is Your Script Based on or inspired by a true story? What's the difference? Is your script based on or inspired by a true story? What's the difference? This is from March 21st, 2021 by Ken Miyamoto for Screencraft.org. So they go through and they lay out the four basic ways to have a true story. Okay, the 4 different types of true story scripts. Okay, there are 4 different types of true stories that screenwriters can research, develop, and write, and each of them comes with its own freedoms, restrictions, constraints, and benefits. So you have based on the true story. Okay, with based on the true story, the expectations are that the character storylines and a majority of the scenes that you present within the script are primarily based on actual occurrences. There are creative liberties taken for sure, but most of the depictions within the script are based on what actually happened and how it happened. Okay. So then you have inspired by a true story. Now, inspired by a true story, with this approach, it offers screenwriters more leeway with the facts and allowing you the ability to take the real story and mold it into whatever feels like the best cinematic experience that is inspired by a true story. Now, the story is inspired by a specific story of a real life person or type of person, but more creative liberties are taken. Okay. And sometimes the screenwriter, studio, or production company wants to focus on certain elements of the story and will use those focused elements to dictate where the story goes and what the characters say and do. Okay. So then you have, they give some examples like The Pursuit of Happiness is a perfect example of writers taking the central, the true story, starring Will Smith, and character and using them to launch an otherwise fictional cinematic story with a few facts mixed in. Okay, that's inspired by a true story. So then you have based on true events. Based on true events. So we'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Back from break in 2 minutes. Okay, back from break in 2 minutes. Who we have here? Let's see. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Give us a heart on this broadcast. We got Cliff. How you doing, Cliff? Cliff Moore. Audio has been skipping several last videos. Shouldn't be skipping the day because we're back on Xfinity, and this is much more expensive. The internet is much more expensive. It should sound all right now. For some reason, when it's broadcasting, there was an issue, but it should be cleared up.
What's that? I'm your host, Brother Michael in Hotel. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We deal with current events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, let's just have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the After History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Okay. So right before the break, we're talking about the film The Woman King and Viola Davis responding to criticism about the historical accuracy of the film. And I was explaining the 4 different ways to tell historical stories when it comes to screenplays. 4 different main ways. You have based on a true story, based on true events, inspired by a true story, and inspired by true events. Okay, so when we look at The Pursuit of Happiness, that's an example of inspired by a true story. The Pursuit of Happiness, starring Will Smith. Okay, so then you have based on true events. Now, each one of these ways of telling historical stories have different levels of fiction in them. So based on true events, here we forego the true story tag and instead focus on a true event. Which basically means that you're taking a historical event and creating a story out of it using primarily fictional central characters. Names, people, locations, and happenings may be made up within the historical events confines as a setting. And yes, to enhance the desirable true story about that Hollywood, to enhance the desirable true story aspect that Hollywood and audiences love so much, you can populate your story with historical figures and events as well, usually using them as figureheads to further legitimize your telling of the true events. Okay, so Titanic, the movie Titanic, that I don't think I've seen. I've seen experts of Titanic. I really don't want to sit there and watch the movie. Was it like 3 hours long, something like that? Titanic. Titanic is a primary example of based on true events. And the movie never really used based on true events in the film's marketing. It was implied. Okay, now then you have inspired by true events, which is what The Woman King is, inspired by true events. So screenplays don't come as loose with the term true as they do with stories inspired by true events. These scripts take a true event and tell a cinematic story with nearly all fictional characters and fictional macro events, larger events. The movie Top Gun never used the tag inspired by true events, but the feature was inspired by the true events of a real school called U.S. Navy Fighter Weapons School, or Top Gun. U.S. Navy Fighter Weapons School, or Top Gun, formerly based at Miramar Naval Air Station in San Diego. The movie was inspired by an article entitled Top Guns, published in the California magazine. Okay. All right. So And then it goes on to say no characters within the film are based on real people. They are all fictional, as are the events portrayed in the film, but the story and characters were inspired by the true events of the school. Okay, they're referring to the film Top Gun. Okay, so read the rest of this here. Is your script based on or inspired by a true story? What's the difference? This is from screencraft.org. All right, so the Woman King is inspired by true events. And once again, if we look at the official synopsis of the movie, it's at their website, the womanking.movie. The womanking.movie. We look at synopsis right here. Okay, so we look at the official synopsis. It says The Woman King is the remarkable story of the Agoji, the all-female unit of warriors who protected the African kingdom of Dahomey in the 1800s with skills and a fierceness unlike anything the world has ever seen. Quote, inspired by true events, end quote. The Woman King follows the emotionally epic journey of General Naniska, played by Viola Davis, as she trains the next generation of recruits and readies them for battle against an enemy determined to destroy their way of life. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth fighting for. It's from and it's directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, who did a fantastic job directing the film. Okay, so if we look at this article here from variety.com, and this piece just came out September 19th. Woman King stars Viola Davis and Julius Tenen talk box office victory and defend film against historical critics. Quote, we have to take license. We have to take license, which is what they do in basically all these movies. They take historical license in all these movies. Okay. Like I said before, the movie Rosewood, directed by John Singleton, the character of Man, the lead character that Ving Rhames portrayed was a fictitious character. Man didn't exist. Man was probably a composite character of actions that different people, different men there took to help those African Americans escape. Okay, but Man didn't exist. In the movie Panther, 1995, the movie Panther, directed by Melvin Van Peebles and Mario Van Peebles, about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. The character that Kadeem Hardison plays, who joins the Black Panther Party, and the movie is like really told through his eyes, that's a fictitious character. He didn't exist. It's a amalgamation of different people and their experiences, with the Black Panther Party for self-defense, but his character didn't exist. So as the film making team of The Woman King travels to Brazil to promote the historical epic, Viola Davis and her husband and producing partner Julius Tenen are celebrating the success of the film's #1 debut at the box office. It'll probably do like 12 million this weekend, between 11 and 12 million this second weekend, grossing 19 million domestically. It came in #1 opening weekend. The film had its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival on September 10th, followed by opening in theaters 1 week later. It's one of the rare films where critics and general audiences give it a similarly positive reception, with a 95% critic score and 99% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It even pulled off an A+ rating on Cinema Score, so it's getting rave reviews. And 99% of people who go see it, especially African Americans, 99% of them that go see it are blown away by the movie. Viola Davis emphasizes that the story of the Woman King can connect to all audiences, not only Black women. Hopefully, it does really well internationally, because the excuse that a lot of the studios give for not having more African American, predominantly African American cast and leads and things like this, is that the movies don't do well overseas. Okay, now Black Panther doing $1.3 billion worldwide, opened, and it came in number one for 5 weeks in a row. Also, that opened up the door for this movie, The Woman King, to be made. That's not me saying it. That's what Gina Prince Bythewood, the director of the film, said. So here's a tweet here from Magic Johnson. Also, thanks to the love and support of my parents, Urban and Christine, I learned at a very early age that family is everything. As they get older, it's important to me to spend time with them. Okay, is that part of the story? Oh no, it's just in there. Okay, there was a sense, Viola Davis tells Variety magazine, there was a sense that our stories are not universal and can't reach the white man or woman or the Hispanic man or woman. That's another excuse that's given not to make movies like this. Oh, they don't have universal appeal. She said, I feel human stories are for everyone, not just Black consumption. I feel human stories are for everyone, not just Black consumption. She said, just today, a white woman asked her, does it surprise you that your story could reach me as a white woman? Viola Davis responded, no. She said, I know my story can reach you as your story can reach me. The only one it surprises is you. Okay, so Viola Davis emerges as an action star in a film that blends large-scale historical, like Braveheart 1995 and Gladiator 2001, both Oscar winners for Best Picture. This movie should win an Oscar also. It's directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, who directed Love and Basketball. We'll continue this on the other side of the break, and then I'm gonna let you hear some of the interview I did today with Professor James Small, dealing with the film of The Woman King and some of the history of Dahomey. We'll be back in a few minutes. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. Invite your friends to tune in also. Back from break in 3 minutes. Who we have here? We have Washington. We have Brownie, who are watching us. Kenya, Randall, Afro Professionals, Willie Ellis. Okay, we've got Sister Amanata Kita, who saw the interview I did with Professor James Small today. We've got Cliff watching also. Back from break in 2 minutes. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Yeah. Welcome back to the African History Network show. Okay. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. All right. I want to go back to this article here from, it's a good article from variety.com. And there's an interview with Viola Davis and her husband, Julius Tenen. And they're talking about the film, The Woman King. And they talk about some of the criticism dealing with historical accuracy. Now, most of these other movies that are made that deal with history don't have to put out articles addressing historical accuracy. They don't get backlash like that. Okay. Most of the people criticizing the historical accuracy of the movie don't study African history also. It's just so we understand. A lot of people just repeating nonsense that they see on social media. You got some BS floating around on social media saying, Lupita Nyong'o was supposed to be the woman king. No, Lupita Nyong'o was supposed to play Naui, the daughter. She was never supposed to play the woman king. I talked about this 5 years ago on this show, that the movie was coming. I talked about this movie in 2018 on this show, that the movie was coming, The Woman King. And then you have people saying, Lupita Nyong'o went to Benin and she did a documentary. I've seen the documentary she did, Warrior Women. I saw it when it aired the first time. I think it was on A&E. And they said because of that, she didn't want to do the film. Lupita Nyong'o didn't say that. That's people reading into it and putting videos out, just trying to make themselves relevant. That's not what she said. She hasn't made a statement of why she didn't do the film. So you got to be careful of people putting this simple Simon nonsense out here like this. You have to ask them, why are you doing this? What's behind that? Lupita Nyong'o didn't say that. So how are you going to then say why she didn't do the movie? Let's go back to this here. So this article here is once again from Variety. This is an interview with Viola Davis and her husband. So as we go further through it, they talk about some of the people who starred in the film. Thusu Bedu, who plays Naui, Lashana Lynch, and Sheila Tim, and Jamie Lawson. Then they go on to say, okay, this is Julius Tenen. Okay, so let's back up here. It's always about the next generation, and that's our job in this lifetime. It's always about running your leg of the race and passing the baton on to the great runner. But you have to be brave enough to run the race. You have to be brave enough to do both original content that will move the narrative, Viola Davis says. Then Julius says, let's be clear. Okay, let's be clear. Hollywood is about commerce. Hollywood is about commerce. And he plays the role of Morrow in the film also. Okay, The Woman King. He said, if we're going to do these kinds of movies, they need to make money. He said, we understand that, which is true. If these movies don't make money, if this movie flopped, there's not going to be other movies like it coming. This movie had a $50 million budget, which is a large budget for this type of movie. And Viola Davis, I've seen numerous interviews that she's done. She talked about how her and her husband had to fight every step of the way. One, to have a decent budget for the film. Two, for Gina Prince Bythewood to be the director. They had to fight every step of the way to get this movie made. Okay. And when you look at some of these interviews, you see this is not an easy movie to get made. This is not the type of movie that Hollywood really wants to make. And let's see. Okay, so you have the cast here also as well. Now there was a part here in the article from BuzzFeed really zeroes in on it. It's let me see if I can find this here. Just allies and black celebrities like to bought out movie allies and black celebrities like Kerry Washington, Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade, and Octavia Spencer bought out movie theaters and communities that may have trouble buying tickets to see the movie. Is that something you would like to see more of moving forward? Viola Davis said, I would because in order to move the narrative forward in terms of diversity and inclusion is going to take all of us doing it together. It's going to take all of us doing it together. This is not a lone wolf kind of fight. When you're shifting cultural narratives, then it takes people coming together to shift it. Alone, you are operating in a vacuum. Her husband, Joyce Tennant, said, what we understand is that the studio wants, what we understand is what the studio wants, and they want movies to perform. Hollywood is about commerce, and if we're going to be able to continue to do these kinds of movies, they have to make money. If we're going to be able to do these kinds of movies, they have to make money. Let's just be clear about that. And we understand that we need to continue to support each other. Okay, with the film's success, then discussions about a sequel, especially given the post-credits sequence with Sheila Atim. So post-credit sequence, Sheila Atim is doing libations, and she's calling. And so we see Ifa, which is the spiritual system of the Yoruba. We see that play a part in the film, and Professor Small breaks that down also with the dial of Ogun, who's an Orisha, Ogun that now he gives to Malik, and Ogun is a Orisha that deals with transformation. Okay, and we see a transformation happen to Malik in the film, which is a pivotal portion of the film. Okay, so then they go on to say hashtag boycott Woman King, which is dumb as hell. You should boycott negative corporate controlled hip hop. Where's that hashtag? The people who are saying boycott this movie, you should be talking about boycott negative corporate controlled hip hop. The dumbass hashtag boycott Woman King popped up over the weekend with people who felt it doesn't address the Dahome's the Dahomey Kingdom's involvement in slavery. We don't see that type of complaint when the Christopher Columbus movie is released that doesn't cover cultural genocide. What do you have to say to those that feel it leaves out those parts of history? Viola Davis said, first of all, I'm not sure she had her hands on her hip when she said this. In my mind, she does. So let's just go with that. First of all, I agree with Gina Prince Bythewood's saying is you're not going to win an argument on Twitter. You're not going to win an argument on Twitter. We entered the story where the kingdom was in flux at a crossroads. So the story starts in 1823. Okay. They were looking to find some way to keep their civilization and kingdom alive. It wasn't until the late 1800s that they were decimated. So they are conquered in 1894 during the Franco-Dahomean Wars. They're conquered by the French, and their Dahomey is going to be absorbed into the French colonies. Okay, so for all practical purposes, Dahomey's decimated, is destroyed. That's 1894. It wasn't until the last 1800s that they were decimated, late 1800s that they were decimated. Most of the story is fictionalized. It has to be. So Julius Tennant said, we are now what we call edutainment. It's history, but we have to take license. We have to entertain people, because if it's not entertaining, it ain't gonna be no more movies like this. People don't understand it. If these movies don't make money, and the opening weekend is so critical, because the opening weekend also determines how much money that the studio spends on the second week, the third week, and fourth week on advertising, on marketing. Okay, so that's all based upon performance. So most of the people criticizing and running their mouths, things like that, one, ain't never written a script, never made a movie, not gonna make a movie, never worked on a movie. It may have been an extra with no lines, something like that. Okay, you weren't in a position like they're in, so they don't understand the business. It's history, but we have to take license. We have to entertain people. If we just told a history lesson, which we very well could have, that would be a documentary. That's not going to generate $19 million in a weekend or something like that. Documentaries don't do that. Generally speaking, documentaries don't do that. Unfortunately, people wouldn't be in the theaters doing the same thing we saw this weekend. We didn't want to shy away from truth. The history is massive, and there are truths on that are there. If people want to learn more, they can investigate more, like watch the African History Network show, because that's what we're dealing with when we come back from the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast, everybody. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Next thing I'm going to do is buy a new laptop, because something's wrong. This has been like one of the worst laptops I ever purchased. This is a Dell Inspiron. Back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, we got Juan Cruz. The showcase E5. Somebody said they showcased E5. Definitely had to see it. Yep. So you got African spirituality in the movie. They don't do that a lot. Okay, you can still register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We have a class coming up Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, September 29th. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Classes on sale $80, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. So as soon as you register, you can start, watching the content. Okay, back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute.
Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do recurring events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, let's have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Super.
Welcome back to the After History Network show. Okay, the calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. And you listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, WFDF. Also, you can listen on by downloading the TuneIn app, the TuneIn radio app to your smartphone, and search for 910 AM WFDF. So you can listen on TuneIn, or you can listen live on iHeartRadio as well. Download the iHeartRadio app. And, we broadcast on Facebook and YouTube when we're live. Also, the African History Network on Facebook, our YouTube channel, Michael M. Hotep. And also, we're broadcasting on 910 AM Superstation's Facebook page also, 910 AM Superstation. Okay, let's see, Giovanni, we're going to clip number one in just a second. Okay, the last portion of this article I want to get to is a response by Viola Davis. All right, and this is the piece from Variety.com once again. Okay, so her husband, Julius Tennant, is talking about how these movies have to make money, especially these historically based movies, African-American movies, because seeing Africans killing white enslavers and colonizers, that's not something Hollywood really wants to show. I'm telling you right now. Viola Davis goes on to say, part of the story that hit me as an artist was these women were unwanted. These women were unwanted. Because when you hear the story about the Agoji, these were oftentimes said to be women that some men didn't want to marry, or women who were not that attractive, things of this nature. They were recruited between the ages of 8 and 14. They were the women who were not considered desirable. They were the women who were not considered desirable. No one wanted to marry them. They were unruly. They were recruited by the king to fight for the kingdom of Dahomey. They were not allowed to marry or have children. The ones who refused the call were beheaded. That's also a part of the story. People really are being emotionally shifted. She said that I saw a TikTok video today of a woman in a bathroom of an AMC theater, and I don't think they knew each other. I saw a TikTok video today of women in a bathroom of an AMC theater, and I don't think they knew each other. They were all chanting and ruminating. They cannot be quantified by words. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from Variety.com. Woman King stars Viola Davis and Julius Tennant talk box office victory and defend film against historical critics. Quote, we have to take lights, end quote, as most movies do. None of these movies, even the white ones, none of them are 100% historically accurate. None of them, most of them never even come that close to being 100% historically accurate. And somebody has to write the script, and the script is not 100% historically accurate. Where does the dialogue come from? Unless it is a movie that's solely based upon the transcripts of a court case, the scripts are made up. All right, I want to go to the interview I did with Professor James Small today, and I introduced him, and we're talking about the film The Woman King. Then we get into some of the history of Dahomey also, and some African history. Let's go to clip number one, Giovanni.
We know The Woman King debuted on, I think it was September 16th. We know it came in number one opening weekend. It'll probably do something like another 12 million this weekend. And the film, you and I have both seen the film. And the film deals with the African kingdom of Dahomey. It deals with the African female, what are called African female warriors, the Ogoji. On to break down some more of this history, explain to us the cultural influences that we see in the film, and also separate fact from fiction as well. And we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, as well as our YouTube channel, Michael M. Hotep, IMHOTEP. And for those that may not be familiar with Professor James Small, I just want to give a brief introduction. We've had him on the African History Network show something like 12, 13 times, something like that. You've seen him in the Hidden Colors documentaries, the documentary Happy, which deals with the role of economics in the development of civilization from Tykeet Grant and Sister Felicia. And he and I are also in the documentary Elementary Genocide Part 3, Elementary Genocide Part 3 from director Raheem Shabazz. Now, Professor James Small is a scholar, activist, dynamic speaker, organizational consultant. Also, he has been an activist since his teenage years. His in-depth knowledge, thought-provoking, and calm delivery are influential elements to break the programming of miseducation. He has studied extensively with Dr. John Henrik Clark, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, another one of my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, who we've had on the show numerous times before as well, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Wade Nobles, who we've had on before, Dr. Amos Wilson, and Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, who I had the pleasure of interviewing 3 times also. Now, Professor James Small taught for 15 years at the City University of New York, including 13 years at the City College of New York's Black Studies Department, where he taught courses on Pan-Africanism, Malcolm X, and on comparative African religion, which included several African spiritual systems titled African Religion and Survival. And he taught 2 years at New York City Technical College, teaching the course African Folklore and Religion, both in the diaspora and in Africa. He's traveled to Africa numerous times. He is also currently conducting, he has taught online courses on African spirituality covering the Yoruba Ifa tradition, the Akan spiritual tradition, Vodun and ancient Egyptian sacred science. And also, he is the historical consultant on my favorite show, Godfather of Harlem, on ethics. Okay, I can't wait for the new season to start up in January 2023. All right, so once again, we want to welcome to the African History Network show one of my teachers, one of my friends, Professor James Small. All right, brother, so thanks for taking time out today.
Brother Michael.
Yes, sir. So you've seen, and everybody watching, let us know how the audio is. I want to make sure you can hear both of us. So you've seen the film, The Woman King. So we're going to start off from the beginning. What were your thoughts on it? People already know what I thought about it. I did a 3-hour broadcast last Sunday on the African History Network show. So what were your thoughts? Initial thoughts?
Well, the first thing I want to mention, because a lot of people fail to mention it when they do my biography.
Okay.
I'm the successor to Al-Haj Malik al-Sabah, Malcolm X.
Yes.
At age 21, after his assassination, I became the imam of the Muslim mosque, where I served 11 years, while serving 18 years.
All right. We'll pause it right there. We'll pause it right there. Stop. Pause it right there. Pause it right there. All right. We're coming up on a break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. All right, let's see. We got Fly Girl. We've got Sunflower. Sunflower says that was a great conversation with Professor Small. Okay, we got DJ Bink. Fly Girl said all the criticism is nothing but BS. No one complained about white movies that are based on true events. Omawali, okay. All right, you saw the interview today. Okay, Tawanda Young. Back from break in 1 minute. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by, everybody. Welcome back to the African History Network show. I'm your host, Brother Michael M. Hotep. It is Sunday, September 25th, 2022. And we are live. The calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, we're going to go back to the interview here in just a second. Be sure to register for the online history classes I teach. We have 2 that are running right now. So if you'd like this type of information, you can register for the online classes. On Thursdays, I'm teaching ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We go through and look this information chronologically as much as possible. And I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You don't have to join us in class live. I don't take attendance. You can see me. I can't see you. So you don't have to worry about people seeing you. If you worry about that. Click right here on register here. Even after the class is over with, you still have access to the full class. Okay. You can still go back and watch it a year from now, 2 years from now. That's fine. And then on Tuesdays, I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay. So I taught that class today. We have another session of it. I think it's going to be Tuesday. All right. So register for the classes, and we have a bundle pack. You get both classes for $130 if you register for the bundle pack. And there's bonus content also that you'll get as well, bonus lectures from me. Okay, I want to go back to the interview that I did today with Professor James Small, and we ended up doing like 2 hours, 15 minutes. I thought we were going to do like an hour and a half, but we went past it. It was fine. It was cool. I was more concerned about his time. Then I turn around and do this 2-hour radio show. That was after teaching a class for about an hour today also. So it's been a busy day. Okay, Giovanni, let's go back to this interview, please.
My foundational piece.
Right.
And I just want to mention that because in The Godfather of Harlem, Malcolm will be assassinated in this last to do that in a way with dignity to him and the family, and not the usual stuff we see.
Right.
I just want people to know that I come from that. That's my birthplace.
Right.
You know, I grew up.
Exactly.
I saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I did a couple of talks on it. People just caught me off guard. I sent a couple of people to it because usually I don't go watch too many black movies because the wrong people are producing and directing and paying for it.
Right.
So I sent a couple of the brothers from the Sons of Africa, watch it, come back, give me a good, and they had a good report. And some friends called who I love and trust, and they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a couple of shows without seeing it, and I realized something this significant, you can't do that with.
Right.
So I went yesterday myself, and I sat quietly, and I was blown the hell away.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody know I love Viola Davis. I mean, if her husband said, I'm divorcing Viola today, I'll tell Carol, you're going to have a second wife in the house because I'm going to propose tomorrow. She is one extraordinary actress.
Yes.
One hell of a professional when it comes to this industry with all the things I've read about her.
Mm-hmm.
But watching this performance, just like you don't get no better playing a role.
Right.
From start to, she don't let up, you know?
Right.
From the opening line to the last moment, this woman is portraying that general who would then become the king. And the one thing I'm going to say to our people, a woman king is not an anomaly in Africa. We got women kings in Africa right now. Matter of fact, one of them is my goddaughter, Giambi, king of the Congo. Okay,
what's her name again? What's her name again?
Giambi, King Giambi. She's king of the Order of the Leopards. She sits on the throne that once held by Nzinga and expanded into the total of the Congo itself.
Right.
She's from the Luba people in the southeast, where she's the queen of the Luba kingdom, but she's king of the Congo kingdom. Hatshepsut in early Egypt was the king of Egypt. Right. And we know of at least 3 to 4 other female kings of Egypt before Hatshepsut. Right now, there's at least 5 woman kings in Nigeria in the different kingdoms. So this is nothing new. If you understand African culture, and you can take this back to Afet in ancient Kemet, right? The woman is the power, and she gives to the man the authority. Operating from throne is authority, but being granted that authority comes from the power, which is the female structure in African society. Let me show how it works in, say, Ghana, and then we'll come back to the movie. Right? Gets to be the king because you know, bring that person to the only the women can bring you to kingship. But it is the power that grants the man the authority. Take it all the way back to Kemet. A lot of people have been to Kemet lately. Go back to ancient Kemet, and you will see a set sitting, and she has a chair on her head. That's the throne of Earth. That's the throne of Africa. Right. The chair on her head is a symbol that she, the woman, is the throne. So who's the King of Kings in ancient Kemet? Right? The King of Kings in ancient Kemet, every king has to become who? A root. A root sits on the lap of Set, because the lap of the woman is the throne of Earth. That's African understanding of culture.
Right.
And when you sit on that throne, right, you do not sit as yourself. You sit as your ancestor.
Right.
That's
Right.
this picture right here. That's Haru sitting on the throne. The throne of earth is of Set. And
Right.
when he sits on the throne, he's sitting on the throne as the ancestors because Set represents the line to divine itself, which is the primary ancestor of the human race. So
Right.
that's what African spiritual culture about kingship is all about. And if you understand this, it's easy to understand why there's a woman king being exalted in this movie. Yes, a lot of the movie is fiction, like most movies are,
Correct.
but a lot of it is historical.
Right.
Even if the timeline may not be on, the
Right.
event is historically rooted. And
Right.
then when you look at the cultural pieces, which we could talk about as we go along, I'll mention them up front.
Mm-hmm.
There's a young man named Malik,
Yes.
and you'll find a young lady who would become known as the daughter to the general, who's played by Miss Viola. She, on occasion, because he developed a friendship with this young man, gives him a statue of Ogun.
Right.
Ogun is one of the primary orishas and deities of the Yoruba tradition or the Ifa tradition. And you'll hear them talk about the Ifa tradition throughout, because that is the spiritual tradition of Dahomey, because Dahomey is an extension of the original Yoruba kingdom.
Right.
Matter of fact, it was founded by one of the sons of the founder of the Yoruba kingdom. And so that tradition is there. And what you're going to see happen to the young man in the movie is he will transform from a young man coming from Brazil, whose mother is African, who had been enslaved, and
Right.
whose father was European. But on her mother's deathbed, her mother told him he needed to go back home to find himself. Go back to her land, her home of the homie, because that is his home. And so the statuette that she gives him is of the one Orisha that is the primary Orisha of transformation of the human character.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see the transformation of Malik as you watch the movie. It's just beautifully done.
This is what I've been talking about.
I know the director. I've heard of her.
Gina Prince Bythewood, who directed Love and Basketball.
Okay, so
African American woman, just what people don't
that,
know.
I love that piece. Right?
Yeah.
But I've been working in studio with Godfather every day, 12-hour days sometimes, going on now 3 years, and working on the project with the writers and others for the last 6 years. So I've learned a lot about how this thing works. And what I saw yesterday in the theater, those Black women kicked butt and putting together a document that every Black person should be proud of. You see, I see a couple of little flaws, but I'm not going to even mention them. You know why?
Right.
Because it's overridden by the positives to such an extent, they're not noticeable in your consciousness.
That's what I've been saying. Exactly. And here's the thing. So I have we have 1 million followers on our fan page, the African History Network. So I've been posting a lot about the movie. I saw it, been posting articles about it, video clips, parts of interviews with Viola Davis, things like this. And 99.9% of the people who saw the movie loved the movie. They say they were blown away by it. And then I talked to people who at first said they weren't going to see it, and they saw the movie. They were blown away by it as well. Okay, this is phenomenal.
That was me. I wasn't initially going to see it. Because I'm tired of them doing the smile in your face and poison us on the backhand, right?
Right.
That didn't happen this time. What I saw this time was Black artists, Black craftspersons, Black technicians, Black actors doing an interpretation in fiction and history with African folklore that you just got to see to believe. And so I call all my children and said, take my grandkids. Walk around, up, take my grandkids. They got to go see this piece.
Right. Exactly.
I don't do that very often because I'm not a movie goer. It's all important movies.
Right.
But
Exactly.
this one treated African history with what I like to call African integrity.
African integrity.
African integrity was so glowing. And not just the visual, but in the dialogue. You heard this praising in the dialogue. This African dignity in the dialogue. This African love in the dialogue. And they're like, damn, this is really good. And I found myself crying on more than one occasion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that.
Right. I cried at the end. I shed some tears at the
Losing
end.
my breath a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I was just so heavy because I love African history like you.
Right.
I've absorbed myself in it. I live it, and that movie had me reeling. And I've been to Benin.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Dahomey. I've been in the very palace they shot the film in multiple times.
Yes.
I've been before the Voodoo Pope on my knees to be blessed because I'm in a voodoo of that.
Okay, pause it right there. Pause it right there, Giovanni. Pause it right there. Okay, we're coming up on a break. Listen to the African History Network show. We're going to play a little bit more of that on the other side of the break, and it's on our YouTube channel and Facebook page also. We'll play some more of that interview next Sunday. And I'm going to get to these other two topics as well. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. What time is it? Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Back from break in 2 minutes. Who we have here? Okay, Fly Girl. All right. How'd you like the interview I did with Professor James Small? Everybody, give us post your comments here on the broadcast. Back from break in 1 minute. Back from break in 1 minute. All right, stand by, everybody.
Oh,
Brother Michael and Hotel. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do with current events of history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on.
This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. Let's just have consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. Okay, if you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. So just keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. We have the information also at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Okay, I want to go back to the interview that I did earlier today with Professor James Small. We're going to start this at the 1624 mark, Giovanni, right at about 1624. Let's go back to this clip, please.
We practice, we know the tradition.
Vodun. Vodun?
Yeah.
Okay.
The state religion in Benin is Vodun.
Vodun, right.
Vodun is the Dahomey manifestation of what we call Europe.
Yeah. It's a judicial system.
But manifest different cultures, different locations. You know,
right.
At the end of the day. And the word Vodun in that language means the essence of the divine within either nature or the human being.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Vodun means, the essence of the divine.
Right. Well, we're gonna go. I'm gonna go to the official synopsis of the movie to give some people the background information on the movie, on the synopsis, and then we're going to continue. I want you to explain African integrity in just a minute. But first, I got to recognize my friend, and you know him also, Professor Hunter Adams. He's watching right now. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Professor Hunter Adams, thanks so much for watching. He said, I agree, Professor James Small. Absolutely. So let's look at this here. So the official website is thewomanking.movie, thewomanking.movie. I want to look at the official synopsis, and then we're going to delve deeper. Because one of the things I want to just briefly explain to people is when you hear that a movie is based on a true story, right? You really have to understand what that means, because there are 4 different types of true story screenplays. There are 4 different types of ways to tell the story. And it's okay. So The Woman King is the remarkable, this is the official synopsis. The Woman King is the remarkable story of the Agoji, the all-female unit of what they call warriors, who protected the African kingdom of Dahomey in the 1800s with skills and a fierceness unlike anything the world has ever seen. Quote unquote, inspired, this is the key word, everybody. Inspired by true events, The Woman King follows the emotionally epic journey of General Naniska, played by Oscar winner Viola Davis, and it was her production company, her and her husband Julius, their production company that produced this film. And she trains the next generation of recruits and readies them for battle against an enemy determined to destroy their way of life. Some things are worth fighting for. It's directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, who's an African-American female woman. Story played by Maria Bello and Dana Stevens, 2 white women, and produced by Kathy Schulman, Viola Davis, husband Julius Tennant, and Maria Bello. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to go through that, Professor Small, very quickly here is, and I've done a ton of research on the film as well. There is, I've experienced this before with other movies. And you have to be careful when you hear a term like based on a true story. You have to really understand what it is. So very quickly, there are 4 ways to tell these historical movies. Okay, this is a good article everybody can read. It's from screencraft.org. Is your script based on, quote unquote, based on or inspired by a true story? What's the difference? So you have based on a true story. You have based on true events. You have inspired by a true story and inspired by true events. Those are 4 different types of ways of telling a story. Mm-hmm. Each one has different levels of fiction interwoven into them. The Woman King according to the official synopsis, is inspired by true events. Okay, I want to briefly explain what that means. Screenplays don't come as loose as the term "quote unquote" true as they do with stories "quote unquote" inspired by true events. Okay, this is not to attack the one king. I just want people to understand this. These scripts take a true event. We can blow this up even more. These scripts take a true event and tell a cinematic story with nearly all fictional characters and fictional macro events. Okay, so once again, I study a lot of movies. I've done lectures dealing with different movies, so you just have to understand how they're telling this movie. Is it based on a true story? Is it based on true events? Is it inspired by a true story or inspired by true events? Inspired by true events, by definition, based upon the industry, is going to have more fiction in it than the other ways of telling these stories. Okay, go ahead, Professor Small.
Well, the key thing, because I work with the Godfather poem.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Based on true events.
Yes.
And in the Godfather poem, we really do the autobiography of Malcolm X. We've actually devoted more time to doing that than any other cinematic production ever. Okay. Malcolm X has been in something like about 12 episodes, 22 episodes when it's over, 23 episodes of this piece. And my fighting there is to keep what I call African integrity and historical authenticity, which is not easy. Okay.
Exactly.
But it has gotten easy because the writers are both black and white, 50%. But they come
on Godfather Fallen. On Godfather Fallen.
But they come from the industry's protocol. So here comes this guy from a black studies, black master's background, who knows nothing about writing, but wants to see images on the screen that reflect African integrity, and reflect the historical authenticity that I think it should. But it's fiction. It's like, how do we take Malcolm X? How do we take Adam Powell? How do we take Bumpy Johnson and create a fictional story about a gangster who partners with civil rights and human rights leaders to get control of Harlem from the white operators of Harlem? How do you tell that fictional story using these historical characters and some historical events? And most of my work is done, even though I go in studio every day, my work is done with the writers in the writers' workshop before it gets to a director, before it gets to the big boys to say, okay, this is cool. And so that's where we get a chance to say, this is what the dialogue is going to look like. This is what the scene is going to look like. This is what's going to be in that room. This is what the costume is going to look like. This is what the attitude is going to be, etc. And so when I'm watching this piece, having spent so much time in Togo, Benin, and Ghana over the last 3 decades, I'm there. I mean, I'm transformed out of that theater. I'm in that palace in Dahomey where I've been multiple times. And I'm feeling the spirit of the ghost. Because I've heard them talk about it so often. They lecture to us when we go there. The king even engaged in the lecture with us so that we begin to appreciate the history. It is not a myth that there was a woman's army or women's brigade that was a part of the greater Dahomey army. It wasn't a complete woman army. They had men too. But the women's brigade, the men made up the infantry. The women made up the battle soldiers. And they were fierce. And they do little demonstrations for you when you go to visit, and you begin to appreciate this. And I'm watching and it goes. And I've also studied, like you, many of the rebellions and the resistance on the ground in Africa before we got on the slave ship. Many of the wars, many of the jihads to try and stop the slave trade, which had been going on for 1,500 years plus before 1492. So we had been at war for a long time against this thing. I brought the places where we saw part of the resistance up in northern Ghana and other areas where the people built houses without windows, that you can imagine that, right? And the fence around the house is 10 foot tall. The housing compound is 10 foot tall. But the gateway to get in the house is 2 feet tall. You got to get on your knees to crawl into the courtyard. So the enemy would lose his head trying to come down, you understand? But that was the defensive mechanism that our people put in place. They had the windows on the roofs. The roofs open up so that they could get sunlight and air. And they just had slit in the walls to use their arrows. So we resisted. So the phenomena that is being portrayed is not abnormal nor unusual.
Right. Okay. Pause it right
The
there.
unusual thing is...
Pause it right there. Pause it right there. Okay. We're coming up on the break, and we're going to continue we'll play some more of that on our show next Sunday. Okay. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael M. Hotep. When we come back, we'll talk about the $105 million coming to Detroit to remove I-375 freeway and repair the damage that the freeway did to the African American community. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Bathroom break in 2 minutes. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Stand by, everybody. Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right. Switching gears here. We're going to go to Giovanni. We're going to go to clip number 2 here in just a second from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, so many people heard about the $105 million coming to the city of Detroit that's part of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. And WXYZ Channel 7 has a story from September 15, 2022. We know that Secretary Pete Buttigieg was here in Detroit right around the 15th of, I think that was that Thursday, September 15th as well. If we look at this story briefly here, and then we talked about it on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Reese Colbert was sitting in for Roland. So we're going to go to that here in just a second. $105 million federal grant will help turn I-375 back into a boulevard. This is from WXYZ.com here in Detroit. Michigan is getting a $105 million boost from the federal government for a massive freeway redevelopment project in downtown Detroit. The money is part of a special grant program to improve areas that were damaged by the interstate highway system. And we know that that's the U.S. Interstate Highway System 1952 and 1956 that drives expressways all across the country. It's expected to help I-375, which links I-75 to Jefferson Avenue in downtown Detroit, turn back into an urban boulevard. That plan has been in the works for years. When I-375 was built, it cut through historic Black Detroit neighborhoods, Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. So Black Bottom was is mainly a residential district. Paradise Valley was the business and entertainment district. My friend historian Ken Coleman, who interviewed me for one of the local, which was that Bridge Detroit he interviewed me for, one of those dealing with Juneteenth. But he was interviewed for this article. He said before the freeway was here, it was an urban boulevard. Before the freeway was here, it was an urban boulevard. Now, President Joe Biden's Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant seeks to help bring the I-375 urban boulevard back. All told, the I-375 modernization project is expected to cost nearly $330 million and is slated to start in 2027 and be completed by 2025. It's possible it can start before 2027, however. MDOT told us last month, WXYZ told WXYZ last month, the highway will be turned into a boulevard from I-75 to Atwater. Okay, I want to go to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. We discussed this, and Reese Colbert was sitting in for Roland. Let's go to clip number 2, Giovanni. Okay, start clip number 2 at the beginning. Let's go to clip number 2. Detroit highway that displaced thriving Black neighborhoods.
Detroit's I-375 did to Black neighborhoods like Black Bottom and Paradise Valley 60 years ago. Today, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg announced a $1 million program named Resurrecting Communities for the city of Detroit for its long-awaited plan to destroy the depressed freeway. Buttigieg says to fix a problem, we have to face and accept what caused it.
Sometimes fixing the damn roads means facing the repercussions of how the roads were originally built. Who was included in that process and who was not? Who was empowered and who was displaced? And when a generations-old piece of infrastructure comes to the end of its useful life, it requires us to decide in our time whether we're just going to put things back exactly as they were or whether we're going to build back better. And we know that some of the planners and politicians behind decisions in the past built roads like this one through the heart of vibrant, populated communities, sometimes even in an effort to reinforce segregation, sometimes simply because the people who lived there did not have the power to resist and force change. Here in Detroit, when I-375 was built in 1964, they literally bulldozed the neighborhoods of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, displacing so many, mostly black Detroiters. And now this freeway, generation later, serves to divide communities, primarily communities of color and low-income communities, from the central business district, the recreational areas, and other great assets downtown. And the freeway design is actually contributing to worse congestion and more traffic crashes on roads nearby. The purpose of transportation is to connect. But we have seen examples in many communities, including here, where an infrastructure decision serves to divide. And we raise this issue not to wallow in it, but to challenge ourselves to do something about it. And now we are putting our money where our mouth is. Governor Whitmer, Mayor Duggan, local advocates, the congressional delegation have supported the application for federal grant funding to fix this, and then did exactly what good advocates should do, which is kept pounding on the door, explaining the difference this would make in the community, and making sure that this got every full and fair consideration in the process. And the result of that is that today I'm delighted to officially announce that the Department of Transportation is awarding $100 million to transform I-375 to reunite this part of Detroit to a connected, thriving community. This is a very big deal, a long time in the making, and it's going to mean the residents can move more quickly, more easily get between their neighborhoods and opportunities, more safely walk, bike, and drive in their city.
The highway removal could begin as soon as 2025, 2 years earlier than expected, with construction finished by 2028. All right, let's go to the panel. I have so many historians and professors on this one, so I'm going to say any, mini, miny. Michael, you go first with your reaction to this announcement, and just put it in historic context for us in terms of what kind of damage was done to Black communities under the pretext of expanding infrastructure.
Well, you know, Secretary Buttigieg was here in Detroit today. President Joe Biden was here in Detroit at the North American Auto Show yesterday. I live about 4 blocks from I-375. I live in the area that was Black Bottom in an adjacent community, which was the entertainment and business district, was called Paradise Valley. And I-375 comes through in 1964, and it's part of the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts of 1952 and 1956 that drive about 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highways all across the country. They run through about 1,600 African-American communities, wiping out homes, wiping out businesses. They're going to displace about 475,000 homes nationwide, which is about 1 million people. Here in Detroit, when you had the 1967 rebellion, at 12th and Claremont, which is renamed, 12th Street was renamed Rosa Parks Boulevard. A lot of those African Americans that were there were originally in Black Bottom and got displaced from Black Bottom, then go into the 12th and Claremont area. So when the rebellion jumps off, they were already upset. But these expressways, this was all part post-World War II. And you have the deindustrialization of the inner cities taking place as the suburbs are being built. White people are getting homes built. A lot of them getting homes built financed by the GI Bill, getting low interest loans on homes. And a lot of African-American World War II veterans couldn't take advantage of those benefits that they earned. And then they're taking the infrastructure from the inner city, the factories and things like this, moving them out to the suburbs, okay? And then they're running the expressways from the downtown business district out to the newly formed suburbs, wiping out African-American communities. And lastly, Buffalo, New York, where the Top supermarket is, okay? That area, that African-American area, was an area that was harmed by expressways running through there as well. So this is all part of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that only 19 Republicans in the Senate voted for and only 14 Republicans in the House voted for. So this is an example of how elections have consequences. And I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but sure as hell, I'm not stupid. And the Democrats are really the only ones who are talking about repairing this damage. Republicans are silent on this, and many of them don't want to even acknowledge that the damage has happened in the first place.
Ooh, class is in session. I want to stay with you just a little bit longer, though, since you are in the area. What does this mean for residents now? I mean, is this a priority for them? Is this something that you think help moves the needle with people really connecting the dots about how it matters? Like you said, elections have consequences. And for too long, a lot of our communities have been left behind when it comes to these kind of packages and these kind of large initiatives. The trillions of dollars are being spent. So what do you think what does this mean to residents now? Not just you, but like the people that you're talking to.
I think for African Americans who are older, like my parents, that generation, I mean, my parents were born when Franklin Roosevelt was president. Okay, so for people who remember what was here in Detroit, it's going to be huge. Now, it's not going to be the same. WXYZ Channel 7 today has a story dealing with this. One of my friends, fellow historian Ken Coleman, interviewed.
Pause it right there. Okay, we'll pick this up on the other side of the break. Put this up on the other side of the break, and we'll try to squeeze in one more story. Listen to the African History Network show. We'll be back in a few minutes. Bathroom break in 4 minutes. Okay, stand by, everybody. Bathroom break in 4 minutes. Bathroom break in 3 minutes. Stand by. All right, who still needs to register for the online history classes that I teach? Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Next class is this Thursday, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bathroom break in 1 minute.
Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do recurring events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on.
This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, let's without consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the After History Network show. All right, we're going to go back to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Reese Colbert was sitting in for Roland. This is from September 15th, 2022. We're dealing with Detroit Highway segregating Black neighborhoods to be demolished. This is dealing with I-375. Giovanni, back it up to the 7-minute mark, please. 700. Back it up to the 7-minute mark. We're going to pick it up from there, okay? Let's go back to this clip, please.
When it comes to these kind of packages and these kind of large initiatives, the trillions of dollars are being spent. So what do you think what does this mean to residents now? Not just you, but like the people that you're talking to.
I think for African Americans who are older, like my parents, that generation, I mean, my parents were born when Franklin Roosevelt was president. Okay, so for people who remember what was here in Detroit, it's going to be huge. Now, it's not going to be the same. WXYZ Channel 7 today has a story dealing with this. One of my friends, fellow historian Ken Coleman, is interviewed in the story. And he says it's not going to be the cultural mecca like it was, but it's going to be a boulevard. It's going to help the community. For younger people who don't really have any knowledge of that, this is something that has to be explained to them and understand how policies impact every aspect of your life. Okay. But for people like in their 60s, 70s, 80s who remember what was there, I think this is going to be something really important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dr. Carr, you are obviously a beacon of knowledge for connecting those dots for your students. How can you help bridge that gap? How can we help communicate? There was a panel, and I don't like MSNBC, I don't pay attention to them, but a panel of younger voters who are just completely disengaged and have no concept of what kind of impact their elected officials has. And this is a very tangible example. So what would you, how do you help bridge that gap? What do you suggest the Democrats do to help really hammer that message home?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is step back and ask ourselves, why now? Now, we know that this money, as Mike says, Mike wouldn't be here if it were white nationalists in power. But as Ada Wells said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. This is not a victory. This is a step toward a potential victory. What do I mean by that? You read a book like Sam Yet, a journalist from a generation ago. Sam Yet wrote a book back in the early 70s called The Choice, the issue of Black survival in America. And he was one of many who was documenting how these highways were placed. I'm from Nashville. They ran 65 through the Black community in Nashville. They wanted to run a highway through Washington, D.C., but they couldn't get the muscle through the local politicians. Every city, whether it's a Black community, major city, has had a highway run through it. So you ask yourself, why do you want to get rid of this highway now? Well, it's quite simple. 3 words. They're coming back. So, bike lanes and boulevards, this is not for the Black people. Understand. Please understand. And Mike, you know this better than anybody. They have bought up downtown Detroit. You could buy $1 in Detroit 20 years ago. Now the thing is white hot. Market. What's that boy that ran LeBron James out of Cleveland, Dan Gilbert, whatever. The guys have bought up everything. So let's take the highway out. And this is not this is not repair. You're preparing it for the pilgrims. This is the history of gentrification. So what I would tell young people is, now that they've gotten the highway out of the way, fight like hell. Why? Because now the property values goes up. So Mike, your parents and all the old people, they ain't gonna be able to stay there for the property taxes. Here come the pilgrims, the single parents, the bike riders, the baby strollers. And it looks like, Black people should have gotten their act together. This is not a victory, y'all. This is just one more step. And finally, I'll end with this, since the Queen of England is dead. I'm reminded of something that Eric Williams said, the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He said, the British are always talking about they abolished slavery. He said, sometimes I think they started slavery so they could run around the world and give themselves credit for abolishing it. You don't get no credit for taking the highway out, Pete. Now that you take the highway out, you get credit if black people can buy homes, run businesses in that neighborhood. Are you preparing it for the people who look like you, who going to come in with their babies and say, hey, we're Detroiters, while poor black people are pushed even farther out in the suburbs?
Well, that's not what I was expecting. But I should have seen that one coming. But, you know, we have Secretary Marshall Fudge as HUD. So maybe, you know, you put Secretary Fudge together.
But, you know, it's your home, Detroit Land Bank. You know, you don't have to get homes with a mortgage.
Yeah.
You can go to the Detroit Land Bank to get homes, things like that. And there are land banks like that in different cities. So, you know, I know Bank of America is going to do 0% down, all that. I mean, if you want a 15-year, 30-year mortgage, you know, you could do that. But there's other ways to get homes that are cheaper.
No, I agree. That's what I would tell young people. Fight like hell. That's what I meant. Right. This is not a victory unless you make it a victory. That's really what I was saying. And that's what it's going to take.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I mean, don't burn me at the stake, but I watch.
Pause right there, Giovanni. Giovanni, stop the clip. Can we stop the clip, please? Thank you. All right. So that was Reese Colbert, myself, Dr. Greg Carr, who's the chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University, and also Dr. Jason Nichols as well. Okay, very good discussion. That is from September 15th, 2022, Roland Martin Unfiltered. So you can download the Black Star Media app and watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, watch him on his Facebook page, Roland S. Martin, and YouTube, Roland S. Martin. And the clips are there. You can watch the full show. I'm usually on Fridays. I was on this past Friday. That particular day, September 15th, I was on Thursday. Okay, we're out of time here. So these other topics we'll get to next week. I wanted to make sure we got that one in dealing with Detroit, because that's really important. That deals with how elections have consequences also, and that deals with money coming to the city of Detroit. That's on top of the $700 million coming to Detroit public schools from the Biden-Harris administration as well, that are going to be used to renovate 5 schools here in Detroit also. If you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN show through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN show, and visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have the information there. You can register for online history classes. Also running on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And we also have a new bundle pack. It's a 15 DVD bundle pack of my lectures also. African History Awakens the African Mind from Mental Death. This includes 15 of some of my latest lectures, and that's on sale, $100. That's at African History Network, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Just click on shop, where it has my DVD lectures and some documentary things like that. All right, remember, right now it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, everybody. I posted the link here, and that is to the bundle pack. We have those shipping out this week. You can order my latest bundle pack of some of my lectures. That includes 15 of my lectures here. And this is the African History Awakens the African Mind from Mental Death. And that's available right now exclusively from the African History Network. And it has a list there of what's included in the bundle also. All right. Remember, right now it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. You can watch the full. We did 2 hours and 15 minutes a day with Professor James Small. That's on our social media platforms. I'm going to put that on the homepage of our website also as well, because we have one of my one of the shows I did when we dealt with Queen Elizabeth II. That's on the homepage of our website. So we'll put the interview with Professor James Small there also. Okay, talk to you next time. Peace.